Hello all YouTubers, and thanks for stopping by my channel. If you get a chance, please go ahead and like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to my station. For those of you who are used to seeing my saltwater tank, today is a little bit different. For a Christmas gift from one of my students, I received a Betta fish. So over this break, I have been setting up my Betta tank. This gave me an idea for my family, so for their Christmas presents, I bought them Betta fish and Betta tanks with all the accoutrements necessary. In this video, I will show you how to go from a store-bought fish to a beautiful and sustainable aquarium. There are currently 73 recognized species of Betta fish. Betta Splendens is the most common in the aquarium trade and probably the one most of us are familiar with. It is also the species that has the nickname of the Siamese Fighting Fish. Betta, the word itself, is derived from the Malay word IKAN betta. It's translated into English as persistent fish. A common mistake is to call it beta, like the alpha and beta in Greek terminology, but the proper pronunciation is actually betta fish. They are a freshwater tropical fish native to the Mekong basin of Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand. They are found in large areas of still, slow-moving water, such as canals, drainage ditches, and rice paddies. They have a special organ called the labyrinth organ, which allows them to live in low oxygen environments that most other fish would die. This labyrinth organ allows the betta fish to gulp atmospheric oxygen and use that for their bodies. A common myth is also that betta fish are really hardy and can live in dirty conditions, when the fact is that they can live in low oxygen conditions, but a clean tank is the way to go. The betta fish lifespan is 3 to 5 years, although in captivity they have been known to live 7 to 10 years in rare instances. When purchasing a tank, your betta fish will thrive in a tank of at least 5 gallons. This Spec 3 is only 2.5 gallons, but if you plan to keep up on your maintenance fervently like I will, it will suffice. When choosing a heater, make sure you choose one that is correct for your size. A 50-watt heater can heat up to 20 gallons, and a 10-watt heater is better for smaller tanks. It is better to buy the correct heater because if it malfunctions in the on position, it could easily fry your fish, but if you buy a heater of the correct wattage, if it accidentally freezes in the on position, it won't overheat too badly. It is easiest to buy a Betta tank setup that already includes a low-flow pump, but if you are purchasing one on your own, you want to consider the total water volume, in my case 2.5 gallons, and you want your pump to turn over that water volume about 5 times an hour. If you're familiar with the saltwater hobby, this is a way smaller water volume, but betta fish are used to low oxygenated areas and would not do well in a high-flow tank. When purchasing filtration for your betta, consider the 3 kinds of filtration that your betta will need to survive and thrive. The first being mechanical filtration, which is simply a sponge. It helps remove the large particulate matter. The next is biological filtration, either a rock or sand substrate or some sort of bioballs will help beneficial bacteria form, which will convert ammonia into nitrites and nitrates. Lastly is chemical filtration. This is merely activated carbon, and this will help remove heavy metals and any unwanted smells. When purchasing lighting for your betta, any kind of lighting will really do, as bettas can thrive in low light environments. The real consideration is if you want living plants, they require much higher lighting needs. This LED lighting that comes with the Spec 3 is sufficient for plants that require low levels of light. Make sure to also purchase a water conditioner All this does is remove chlorine from the water, which is really important in certain parts of the country. Here in Seattle, we're lucky that we have low levels of chlorine and no chloramines, but most places in the country use chloramines and heavy amounts of chlorine, which is very dangerous and unhealthy for the fish. Step 1 for setting up your tank is to choose a location. 2 things to consider: don't put your tank near a window, and also don't put it in direct sunlight. Direct sunlight can cause unwanted algae growth, and windows are often drafty, and temperature fluctuations can harm your fish. Step 2 is unpack your equipment and rinse everything in fresh water. Make sure anything that will come in contact with the water is given a thorough rinsing, including any substrate that you have. Step 3 is rinsing your filter media. Make sure you rinse your sponge filter, any bioballs that you may have, as well as your activated carbon. Don't rub the carbon together because you'll create more grits and you'll break it down. Just give it a gentle rinsing, maybe for 10 seconds to get all of the dark stuff out of there, and you will be good to go. Step 4 is adding your substrate. Once it has been rinsed and your tank is either full or empty, doesn't matter at this point, add your substrate to the bottom. You're going to see that it's going to be very murky, so make sure your filter is running so that all those fine particulates can be filtered out before you add your fish. Step 5 is add water conditioner. You can actually do this in step 4 as well. Using this water conditioner, you use 7 drops per 1 gallon of water. So I would use approximately 14 to 20 drops. Make sure this is added before any fish are into your tank, as it needs a little bit of time to remove the chlorine and chloramines. Step 6 is really important, especially the first time you add your betta to your tank. You need to equalize the temperatures. You need to figure out what temperature, most likely room temperature, your betta is already in, and then wait until your tank water reaches that temperature. Then and only then is it safe to add your betta into the tank. This gets a little bit trickier in the future because any water change water that you're going to be using will also need to be heated to the appropriate temperature. Step 7, you can finally add your betta to the tank. You do not want to add any of the aquarium water from the local fish store to your tank, so you can either pour out the majority of it or use a net to pour them in. Let's discuss all things relating to the tank habitat for your betta. First of all, the water temperature should be between 75 and 80 degrees. If you keep up with 30 to 50% water changes, none of this will be a problem. But for water quality, you should have 0 chlorine or chloramines, 0 ammonia, nitrites, nitrates, and low to 0 phosphates. For a substrate, you can have a bare bottom or you can have sand or rock. Just make sure whatever item you purchase is approved for aquarium use. Live plants are always beneficial in an aquarium because they help filter the water and also provide hiding spots and shade. Plastic plants are also okay, just make sure there are no sharp edges as they can easily tear the fins of your betta fish. Personally, I love the look of driftwood in a freshwater tank. You're looking at a piece of mopani wood that has been cured and is meant specifically for being submersed in aquarium water. Do not use any wood you find outside or any other kind of driftwood that is not specifically meant for use in an aquarium. Driftwood is going to naturally leach brown tannins into the water. These will not harm your fish, but if you would like to speed up this leaching process, you can boil your driftwood for 3 to 4 hours before putting it in your tank. It will still leach tannins, but at a much slower level. You can add other fish to a betta aquarium. Given that the aquarium is sufficient size, I would say probably at least 10 gallons, you have to make smart choices and do your research because adding another fish could make the betta aggressive and harm both the betta and the other fish. Do not overfeed your bettas. Bettas have naturally small stomachs, and I only feed one piece 2 to 3 times a day. Overfeeding your betta is going to just harm your aquarium because it's going to add phosphates and ammonia as the food breaks down. A standard betta pellet food is sufficient, although they do like occasional frozen treats that you can find at any local fish store. Weekly water changes are going to be at the heart of your betta fish tank care routine. They are absolutely essential to lower ammonia, nitrites, nitrates, and phosphate levels, and also just to keep the water clean. Make sure you use only dechlorinated water. This is me starting a siphon. It's one method of starting it so you don't have to get tank water in your mouth. Just put a bucket below water level and go ahead and siphon away. I also like to take the time to vacuum the rocks and pick up any detritus or debris that might be lying on the surface. On a weekly basis, I would also clean the glass. You can use a toothbrush for this or pick up a specific aquarium cleaning tool. If a toothbrush isn't working, you may need to get out a stainless steel scrubber for your glass aquarium or an acrylic scrubber if you have an acrylic aquarium. Also, pull out your filters, clean your sponges, and replace your activated carbon, preferably once a week, but every other week is also sufficient. I hope you found this video informative. We really just scratched the surface and there's so much more we could talk about. If you have any questions, please write them below and I'll make sure to answer them when I get the time. If you're new to my station, please do subscribe, like it, leave any comments or feedbacks. I think the fish keeping hobby is fantastic, and whether you're doing a fancy saltwater or a simple betta tank, you can find a lot of joy and beauty in this hobby. Thanks for stopping by, everybody, and I'll see you soon.